Today we're going to talk about the legacy of Thomas Jefferson. And there's two areas that I'd like to focus because I consider them to be the most important as to the Jefferson legacy. One is the fact that Jefferson had a very astute mind when it came to finances. He was very frugal. In fact, I want to say the first order of business for him as president was the establishment of a wise and frugal government which should restrain men from injuring one another, but which would otherwise leave them alone to regulate their own affairs. In short, he wanted a government that would respect the authority of the individual states, operate with a smaller bureaucracy, and cut its debts. And Jefferson also felt that the country should eliminate Hamilton's standing army by relying on a disciplined militia for national defense against invasion. Most importantly, he believed that good government would promote the encouragement of agriculture. Commerce was always in his mind, and it should be the handmaiden of agriculture rather than its driving force. Now, if you take a look at what he actually did, he reduced, though not that substantially, about 316 employees that were subject to presidential appointment, while leaving intact most of the nation's 700 clerks and 3,000 postal workers. The army was cut down to 2 regiments. You had 1 infantry regiment and 1 artillery, about 3,500 people total, with similar reductions in the Navy. He also pressured Congress to abolish the direct tax of 1798 and to repeal the Alien and Sedition Acts, which were still in operation. And to emphasize his opposition to these acts, Jefferson personally pardoned the 10 victims of those laws who were still in prison. Even after paying $15 million in cash for the Louisiana Purchase, which ties in with his foreign affairs piece, the national debt dropped from $80 million to $57 million during his 2 years of service. Now, the next piece I want to talk about is foreign policy or his foreign affairs. I like Thomas Jefferson because he came to power determined to limit the reach of the federal government, but he also understood foreign affairs. And foreign affairs actually dominated his presidency and pushed him toward federalist policies that greatly contrasted with his own philosophy. I mean, the first foreign episode that Jefferson was involved in were the Barbary Pirates, where actually United States Marines went. That's where we get our song on, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. For a previous century or so, Western nations had paid bribes to the Barbary states, which would later become, of course, Morocco and Algeria, Tunis, and Tripoli, to keep them from harassing American and merchant ships. And when the Pasha of Tripoli raised his demands in 1801, Jefferson refused to pay. He said, "Hey, pal, I'm not paying you." And he sent a naval task force or warships to the Mediterranean, blocked the small nation, and tried unsuccessfully to kind of create a palace coup d'etat in Tripoli, if you will. This was probably one of the first covert operations in American history. The war ended with agreements that involved one last payment of tribute, at least to Tripoli, and Jefferson's action on this matter caused him to rethink the need for a more well-equipped Navy and halted his move to reduce the force to a mere token size. Jefferson learned on the job, and even though he had his own ideas, he was never so emotionally attached to these ideas that he couldn't change. Jefferson will still be a very strong president in my mind and in the mind of many, because he set the tone, I think, for other presidents in terms of his leadership, in terms of recognizing him as a man who had ideas, who were willing to change those ideas as time progressed. He's a fine guy. He's a tough guy. Plus, in short, he likes Marines. So I dig Jefferson.